So occasionally with every golfer, you have that Eureka moment. And I just might have had mine warming up. But I'm going to show you why this works for me and whether you hook or slice the golf ball, how learning how you're hinging and unhinging your wrists might just be the secret you need rather than thinking about flexion or extension of your wrist. Now, if we take a look at the shots I've hit there in warm-up, we can see very, very accurate for the few shots. And we can see the average club face was 0.8 degrees open. The average path was 1.1 degrees to the left. So I'm never chasing 0-0, but if I can take some curve off the shot, it makes it a lot easier to aim at the target and hit that ball straighter to that target. Now, if you struggle with that, keep watching because this is gold. Okay, so I've said there that I've hit a lot of straight ones. I'm going to hit what would be a normal shot for me. So I'm going to aim straight, just so you can understand what the face and path are. And I'm going to use hack motion here with the app to show you how my lead wrist is really influencing what that club face does through impact. So set up, make my normal swing. It's a bit more exaggerated than normal, but we can see that one curving round to the left. And when we look on hack motion there, a little bit of extension at address, a little bit too much at the top of the swing, but by impact, lots and lots of flexion and way too much. So what is flexion and what is extension? So if we're talking about extension is this way, which is opening the club face. Flexion is this way, which is closing the club face. So we can understand there that if I'm going to get that ball curving way to the left, as again I've done there, club face really closed. And again, we can see lots and lots of flexion in there. And that's my killer for my golf swing. So I think a lot of coaching is spoken about kind of what we're doing with this wrist, you know, whether it be on the way back, flattening the wrist off, flat at the top. But what not a lot of golfers talk about, and this is something maybe I haven't thought about enough in my golf swing, is actually when we're here and we flatten that wrist off, I'm already at kind of -10, and I go to the top. But then as I come down, we see that number start to get bigger and bigger, and then into impact, that's where I get that left one. Whereas if I actually were to think about getting to the top as normal, and then almost feeling like I unhinge my wrists quicker, we can see that's going to be very different into impact. And that's the key. So for me there, I'm feeling like I'm making my backswing as normal, but then try to unhinge my wrists much quicker, and we can see how I'm not going to be as flexed into impact. So this is a great way, and I'm going to talk about the slicing and hooking thing in a second, but I know I've got that left one in me, that's absolutely no problem. So now let's try and do what I've been working on just a little bit there. So I'm feeling like that club face stays a little bit squarer, maybe a little bit closed on the way back, but then gonna kind of release my wrists, unhinge my wrists much quicker through impact. Now, a little bit thin, and club face there, 2.7 degrees open. And we can see there, instead of being red now at impact, I was yellow, so it's much closer to where I need to be. Let's go again. And there again, still saying a little bit too flexed for me, and that one just drifting out to the right with a slightly open club face, but it's very, very different. It doesn't feel like I can miss one that way at all. So again, we're gonna get back, feel like I let that go a little bit earlier. That's going to be much easier through there. And even though still a little bit more flex than I need to, I look at that and that's so straight, very close to 0-0. And like I said, I'm not trying to be 0-0, but for me, this is a lovely feeling of just making that backswing as normal, and then instead of feeling like I hang on to that angle, just kind of letting the wrists unhinge a little earlier, and that gets me much more into that position as opposed to that position. So this is working unbelievably well for me, but the key then is how can you use this for you rather than thinking about how I'm twisting the shaft? How about I release those wrist hinge earlier or later to get shape of shot? So let's say you're somebody who slices the golf ball. As you come into impact, you're going to be much more this way at impact. So that club face is going to be wide open. So we're going to try and feel then that if you're somebody who is much more that way through the golf ball, we can see that club face wide open. And you can see on hack motion there, plus 13. So the wrist way too extended and the club face wide open. So for you, you're the kind of golfer then that if you're working much more this way through impact, we want you to feel like you unhinge your wrists as late as possible. And if you can do that, we should start to see a much more flexed position into impact, but also that club face, maybe not closed, but we can see there on TrackMan, that club face only 0.4 degrees open. So if you're somebody who's been coming back with that club face wide open, feeling like you unhinge the wrist much later, that club face is going to be much squarer, and you might even be able to start drawing the golf ball. And that's massive, understanding that sometimes it's not just about this movement, but it's also about how this movement ties in. So most slicers of the golf ball will see that they release the club super early, putting that wrist into extension, get that scoopy movement. So if you can feel that you stop that wrist releasing and unhinging too early, you can see a very different impact position. But if you're like me and you're someone who hits it left, you want to feel that those wrists are releasing earlier. It's probably not going to do what you think, but if you can stand up there, and we can see there, even though it's still a little too extended at the top, absolutely great and green through impact. And like I said at the start of the video, every golfer at some point has at least one Eureka moment. And for me, feeling how those wrists are hinging and unhinging in the downswing has been a really good way of getting some control on that club face. A lot of golfers are going to feel different to me, but if you've got something like hack motion, you can get that feedback as you're practicing. Sometimes a little bit of trial and error can be good. Trying a new feel, see what it does for that wrist, see how it gives you control on the club face, and hopefully from watching this, you just might find your Eureka moment.